Well, if we're gonna find any ghosts, we better split up.
You're listening to Never Split Up, a horror movie podcast.
There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Never Split Up podcast. My name's Nolan, along with Anthony, and today we have a good one for you. It's episode 54. We are covering Immaculate, released in 2024. What's going on, Anthony? We are back from our little hiatus, our little summer break. How you doing?
I'm doing good. It feels good to be back, and I'm excited to talk about another horror movie.
It feels great to be back. I've been itching to get back. So just a little, tidbit about the personal life. I obviously, if you see behind me, I'm in a new location. So I moved into a new house. That's kind of why we kind of took the summer off. Just things were very busy, very hectic. But we are super happy to be back just in time for the Halloween season. It's now September. We're rolling right along. Before we know it, in a couple weeks, it's going to be October, and we are going to get a jam-packed schedule for you guys because, like we said, we're itching to get back. So we're going to be having a lot of big episodes coming your way. But we're starting with Immaculate. We thought we'd start our first episode back with a newer release. Kind of a movie that released in at the beginning of the year and generated quite a bit of buzz. It was a Neon Film, which is a smaller indie company that releases smaller budget movies, but it did pretty well, right, Ant? Do you want to cover the box office and just talk about the movie a little bit, the overview, the cast, and everything?
Yeah, for sure. So the movie, obviously, Nolan said it came out in theaters in March of 2024. It's directed by Michael Mohan. He actually directed Sydney Sweeney in another movie called The Voyeurs. It was like an Amazon Prime release. I thought it was like a fun, trashy, like erotic thriller. I thought that was another pretty good movie. But yeah, it stars the lovely Sydney Sweeney, and it did do well for, like you said, it's a small studio, Neon, so they don't have like the big marketing budgets of like, the Universals and Warner Brothers and Disney's of the world. So it did $28.4 million on a $9 million budget, and I think it also blew up like once it hit digital and streaming, like, kind of did really well. So yeah, this was good for them, and really, put Sydney Sweeney front and center as a leading lady. And she could carry some horror movies for sure. So yeah, I am excited to talk about this one.
Neon's been doing pretty well, right? Didn't they have another pretty decent hit on their hands recently?
They had a huge hit with Long Legs. So
Long Legs. I was thinking before Immaculate they had something too, like last year.
They've been doing pretty good.
Doing
I
good,
know they're
right?
the ones who they're the ones who released Parasite that won the Best Picture a couple years ago and all that. So they've been doing good.
Yeah, it's becoming pretty evident that the horror genre in Hollywood is it's paving the way. It's showing the blueprint of how to make money nowadays. No overinflated budgets. Keep the budgets tight and make a nice little profit. And horror is definitely leading the way with that. You're seeing that time and time again with these smaller budget horror movies that are marketed well. I thought the marketing for this movie was pretty clever. They did some cool stuff online, especially with Sydney Sweeney and stuff. You see the video of her watching the movie with the nuns, the real nuns?
Yeah, I thought that was great.
Was super clever, yeah. It takes me back to kind of the marketing campaign for Smile that we covered when we first started this podcast. Kind of unique and clever, and you see that from the horror genre. You don't really see that from many other genres, especially with these bigger studios. It's more cookie cutter, and I think it pays dividends and people, it draws real interest. And like you said, once it got to streaming, so I didn't see it in theaters. I saw it streaming at home when it first came out. I obviously just watched it again for this episode, so I've seen it twice now. And yeah, it's like I said, it's generated quite a buzz, especially on film Twitter. I always see people still talking about it several months later. And it doesn't hurt that Sydney Sweeney is like everywhere now. She had that big rom-com that came out earlier in the year, so she's kind of one of the big it girls in Hollywood right now, so that definitely helped its cause as well.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that all these studios should really take notes of Neon's marketing campaigns between this and Longlegs.
Hmm.
That's how you market a movie without like overinflating a crazy budget just for nothing. I mean, this is crazy what they're doing with these little horror movies.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Okay, yeah, let's roll right into it. I guess we will cover. Oh, by the way, before we start, we just want to shout out our last episode. I know it was a few months ago. It was another new release from this year, Late Night with the Devil. That was a fun episode. We are gonna post the poll, so we'll. I guess by the time this episode releases, we'll have already posted the poll. But definitely check out that episode if you guys haven't listened to it. And check out all of our previous episodes and try to catch up for the year, because we're going to be going probably every week, because I know we were doing bi-weekly for a while just because life was crazy, but I want to start doing it weekly episodes again, especially for the Halloween season. So buckle up, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be another fun season. So why don't we get into our overall thoughts, whether we recommend the movie or not? I'll let you go first.
Okay. I did see this movie in theaters back when it came out in March, and I really, 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 really adore this movie. I think it's very good. I love a tight, under 90-minute horror movie, and this movie just really gets to the point, doesn't waste time. It's nice and tight and concise. And I think if anyone had any doubts about Sydney Sweeney's acting ability, like beyond her like being gorgeous, which everyone says she's just, famous for her looks, watch this movie, because she delivers the goods and she's a fantastic actress, and she's on her way to become a scream queen if she sticks with some of these genre movies, because her scream in this movie in certain scenes, it like chilled me to the bone, and I think she just kills it in this movie. She's so damn good. I actually saw her for the first time in a show on Netflix. I forget what it was called. I think it was called Everything Sucks. And I was like, she kind of like stood out to me back then. And then ever since then, I've been following her. But yeah, she kills it in this movie. Religious horror, I'm a fan of it. It's hit or miss for some people, but I think that what they did in this movie worked for me. It's not anything. So I knew where the movie was going the whole time, so it's not like there was any like huge twist. But I just think Sydney Sweeney, on top of the directing and the tightness of the script, is what made it work. And it was actually a little more gory than I thought was anticipating it to be before. I thought it was just like some psychological horror with some crazy, little bit of crazy imagery here and there. But no, there's some good bloody scenes, and I'm like, hell yeah, go there. And this movie does go there. And the ending also doesn't shy away from ending on a note that could be controversial to some, which I'm like, hell yeah, I love when a movie goes there and is not afraid to. This movie actually came out the same weekend in theaters as Late Night with the Devil, and if you guys watched that episode, Noel and I are a little bit different on that movie. We're both positive, but we're a little bit, Nolan's a little more positive than me, but I do prefer Immaculate more than that movie. I know people have Late Night with the Devil as some of their top horror movie of the year, and I do prefer this one. I think it's a lot more concise, to the point, and it sets out to do something, and I think it succeeds, and then some. I think it's a very good movie. There is another movie that came out this year that is very similar plot-wise to this movie, and we'll get to it soon, especially at the end of the year. And I might be a little biased because it is part of an IP and franchise that I adore, but I do think that movie does blow this one out of the water. But we'll get to that when we get to that movie. I don't want to spoil it because it's going to end up on my top horror movies of the year. It might still be my favorite horror movie of the year so far, but if you know, you know. The movies have pretty similar plot lines. But yeah, this is a huge recommend from me. Sydney Sweeney kills it, and I can't wait to see her do more horror.
Okay, cool. Very interesting. So you brought up Late Night with the Devil, how you kind of both liked it. I liked it quite a bit more than you. I would say it's definitely one of my top releases of the year. Disclaimer, guys, again, the reason we took a hiatus was because we were so busy, and part of that is I haven't seen a ton of releases this year. So when I say that, like, oh, a movie is like my favorite or one of my favorites of the year, it's kind of got that asterisk. So I'm going to try to catch up by the end of the year, especially when we make our end of the year lists. So definitely going to catch up. But yeah, going back to my point, though, I feel like we're going to be flipped this episode. So you're going to like this movie more than me. I still like the movie. It's going to be similar, I think, than the way you felt with Late Night with the Devil. It just kind of didn't crack the code for me. It kind of had pieces and elements that were there that I liked. and we're obviously going to dive into that over the course of the episode. But you brought up Sydney Sweeney was your first point, I believe. I actually kind of disagree with you. I think she had some highs in the movie, and as the movie progressed and got more intense, her intense acting was really great. But I think the lulls in the movie when she's just like acting normal, like in the first act, she kind of is not polished. And I hate to really kind of rag on her because, you know, she's an A-list actor, and who am I to say, oh, she sucks at acting? I'm not trying to say that, but it felt a little forced to me. So I don't think it was like a super standout performance, but definitely as the movie progressed and it got more intense, and especially in those final sequences, she definitely acted her ass off. And, you know, when she's in those intense scenes, it's way more believable, and I bought into it. So that helped a lot. You also said that the movie was quite predictable. It was, but they were kind of going for that mystery vibe. Like you weren't quite sure. I mean, obviously by the end you find out, but you know, there was a couple different ways they could have taken it. I don't think they could have handled it a little bit better. I actually had a couple different theories the first time I watched this movie, like before the ending, that they could have kind of flipped it and did a little bit of a twist, and I might have. It depends how they handled it, but it could have been a little bit better. But I want to explore that as we get towards the end of this movie. Yeah, it's good. I like that it's under 90 minutes. You know, I like, especially for a religious horror. You know, we've seen it be done to death. We don't need like over complicated story and you know, backstory and stuff. It's like, okay, we get it. Like we know what's going on. You talk about the goriness. I do like that. I wish it had a little bit more creepy visuals, not gory visuals, but just they had a little bit, believe it or not, like in the beginning of the movie, like the dream sequence and stuff, I thought was really intense. And also the opening scene, I really liked. I thought that was a highlight of the movie. But every time they show you something that's cool, it kind of goes away, and then you're just, you know, back to the story. It's like, okay, I wanted to stay in that moment a little bit longer. So I wish they could have tweaked it a little bit to make it a little bit more unsettling, if that makes sense. And yeah, your final point, I definitely agree with you with the similar movie that came out. I mean, we just say it's the First Omen. I mean, they're basically almost identical with their plot. I mean, some of the scenes are like literally identical. I remember I was just watching this movie again, and I was actually getting a couple of the scenes mixed up from the First Omen. I'm like, oh wait, that's this movie. Okay, that's not the other movie. But I do agree with you there. I think this movie is just not on the same level as the First Omen. I think the First Omen, and that's what I'm talking about. And if you guys have seen the First Omen and you've seen Immaculate, the First Omen had more of those visuals and more of those unsettling sequences that I wish Immaculate kind of leaned into a little bit more. So, but I still had a good enough time with this movie. I'm not trying to, you know, be totally negative on it. It's going to get a decent score from me, but I think you're going to give it a higher score for sure. But I would say if you're into religious horror and you like Sydney Sweeney, you should definitely give it a shot. It's a recommend from me.
Okay, cool. So you still give it a recommend.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I will say, I know we just said how similar those two movies are. The thing that I like about Immaculate, that the First Omen, obviously we know the First Omen does have some supernatural stuff, if you've ever seen The Omen. I like that Immaculate didn't take that route. Maybe that might be why it didn't have as many like crazy, like wild, freaky, disturbing imagery. And because it's actually all set in reality, there is nothing supernatural going on in this movie. It's all, you know, human made in the, you know, the twists and turns in this movie, so it's not anything crazy otherworldly.
Okay. Oh, and your other point, I was disappointed in the ending. The
Really?
very end. Yeah, well, we'll get there. I don't want to spoil it, but it was a little disappointing for me. I wish they kind of.
Oh wow, okay.
You said they went there. I don't think they went there enough, but we'll talk about
I
that.
mean...
So what did you think? Let's get into it. Obviously, spoilers ahead. What did you think of this opening scene? I think that was one of the highlights of the movie for me. It was very intense.
It's very intense and very suspenseful when Sister Mary is obviously trying to sneak out. When she grabs those keys, like, oh girl, don't make that noise. But I love stuff like that. I live for it when, someone's trying to escape and they're trying to be quiet and once they get out of the building that someone's going to follow right behind them. I love the shot with like the nuns walking side by side slowly to get her at the gate. And you're like, of course, you're like, oh, she's going to get out. She's going to get out the key. And I love how she pretty much gets out and they just grab her leg. And again, I wasn't anticipating them like just snapping her leg. I was like, okay, they're getting to the gritty stuff right away. And if anyone knows me, I'm claustrophobic. So if someone wakes up in a coffin and buried alive, like that's one of my worst fears. So that got me. That got me for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, when her lighting the matches, it was super cool. Because you think the scene ends, and then all of a sudden she lights the match and she's in the coffin. Seeing that for the first time, I was like, oh, fuck, here we go. So that was really cool. I like that a lot. That definitely set the tone for the movie. I wish this wasn't like one of the biggest highlights of the movie though, because it kind of is a testament to how there isn't that much more of this in the rest of the movie, if that makes sense. Like you said, the nuns walking in the line, I wanted more of that stuff. And I feel like as the movie progresses you have like the main villains, you have, Sister Francesca, I think her name is. I'm looking at the cast here. You have, Father Sal, and you have the other priest guy. They're like the main quote unquote villains of the film, but you don't really get that overall cult feeling as much. They have like the cool dudes in the hoods. But I feel like they're not utilized because they were creepy with the red like masks on them. I feel like they could have utilized them a lot better and a lot more to make it more feel like there was like this bigger overarching cult that was like keeping her locked away instead of like these couple of people, if that makes sense. I just wish they had more, especially at the end where we'll get into the ending sequence. It's just like, where's all the people? What's going on?
Okay, interesting.
So yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think I like the tone that the opening scene sets, and I do agree that like that's the scene where you get like the cult of the nuns together. But I think I'm so connected with Sister Cecilia and Sydney Sweeney. I'm pretty satisfied that for the rest of the movie, it's really just everything surrounds her, and it's not like it's all about her journey. So I like that it really just every scene has to do with her, and it's not worried about too much of the cult stuff. It's just following her and her journey. So I appreciated that.
Yeah. I would say, and speaking in like a macro level, I would say maybe the biggest problem I have with this movie and why I don't love it and I just like it is, I wouldn't necessarily call it pacing, but I would call placement of things. So my first example is coming up pretty much right away. So we get introduced to Cecilia. We have the whole the immigration scene and stuff with the passport. Right. We get that. We get the whole character introduction. That's fine. But then we go pretty much, she meets the other sisters, and we go pretty much straight into the initiation that night, and she gets initiated in. I would have liked to see that be pushed back maybe 10 minutes further, and we got a little bit more beforehand. And there's stuff like that I think is just a little misplaced, and they could have shuffled around. Because if we got like a bigger build up to that initiation, we could have cared about it more. Like, you know what I mean? But there was really nothing. It was just like a straightforward movie from like we had the opening sequence, obviously, but once we're introduced to Cecilia, it's just okay, like, I want to become a nun, and then she becomes a nun. I just wish they had a little bit more build up to that. And that's kind of one example of how it just doesn't quite click for me, this movie, and why it's, not like a must watch for me.
Okay. I actually like that they pretty much dive right into it and go for it. I mean, we see her get, obviously the typical, she walks through, where she's staying, and then she gets introduced to the roommate. What's the girl's name? What's her name? Gwen, her roommate? I can't remember.
Yeah, Sister Gwen,
I think.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Like her, love her.
She's cool, love her, yeah.
You can tell that she's going to be like the sane, friend who's looking out for her. Hopefully, no, where it's vice versa.
Oh
in the
yeah,
first
she's not
Omen.
even religious. She's just like, oh
Right,
yeah,
she's
this life
just like,
looked
I
cool,
go
so
here.
I just
Yep.
signed up. Yeah.
So I really like their relationship. So I think we got like just enough without like, again, this movie has no fat. So I think that we got just enough where we still are like latched on to Sister Cecilia. We care about what's going to happen to her after that initiation. Obviously, we know that night. Of course, when she says, "I think I had a little bit too much wine," that's the night. What they're gonna do is gonna happen. So I do, and I like the scene where I love, like, I'm a sucker for like red and green, or like red in horror movies. So when she is getting taken advantage of, I love the flashing red with the hooded figures. I think that's a really cool sequence. That first night.
I agree with you. Yeah, I think the sequence itself was really cool, and again, those hooded figures were really creepy. Yeah, that was cool. I think this movie has a really strong has some really strong elements in it, especially the first half of the movie. But I just wish they kind of lingered a little bit longer, and there was more of an intense buildup. You kind of get a little flashes, but I wish there was more of it. I will say that rewatching this movie the second time actually made the movie a little bit more intense for me and a little bit scarier, if you will, because I know what's going on and I know exactly how it ends. So I'm able to kind of put myself in other people's perspective, not just Cecilia's. But the first time watching it really was, you have these cool sequences and then you just go back, to her, thinking everything's fine. And, she's getting gaslit by Father Sal. He's like the biggest gaslighter in the whole movie. He's like, everything that comes out of his mouth is just a lie.
I can't stand him.
Yeah, but yeah, I will say, I guess that's a good thing that it's kind of rewatchable in that sense, because I actually did enjoy this movie the second time around a bit better than
that's
the
good
first.
to hear.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, I like that. I guess because where the story ends and what she goes through, that it's like maybe the next time you watch, like, okay, that can,
because
break it
I
down
wasn't,
a little bit.
and we already did the spoiler warning, so we can just kind of jump around it.
Right.
I wasn't totally convinced that it was going to be a straightforward, they're trying to recreate Jesus in the womb. I thought there was maybe a twist because they showed that opening sequence of her at the station. I thought maybe she would have gotten, like, she repressed the memory of getting like sexually assaulted by those guards because they were making comments about her looks and stuff, and
too young, like, you look too young to be doing this.
that was my first running theory watching this movie, and I was like, you know what, they're gonna flip it on us and it's gonna turn out that she was raped or something, and it wasn't an immaculate conception. But obviously that didn't turn out to be the case. So that's kind of an example of, now that I know what it's all about and that there isn't a twist, watching it a second time, it kind of gives me those creepier vibes, knowing that everyone's up to no good and there's no really innocent people. Even the old lady that you think maybe is going to save her at the end of the movie, she's like, no, she's all in on it. She's all in.
You'll never leave.
Yeah.
So do you appreciate, like, I guess now rewatching, that it is pretty much straightforward, that Sal is just, he became a priest after, and he's just using these samples, and trying to impregnate these nuns in hopes of, the new Messiah, whatever, all that. I kind of like that. I'm like, okay, this is a real thing that these fucked up people are doing, rather than this whole, something too crazy.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think this movie needed a twist ending. I think it was fine the way it is. They explained enough. The whole scene where he's wheeling her through the fetus room, the failed fetus room. Yeah, all that was all. I was definitely fine with it for sure.
And what about Sister Isabel, the one who obviously is jealous of Cecilia throughout the entire movie? I thought that that was pretty effective, like when she's trying to drown her, and you get like little hints, it's supposed to be my turn. Like, they do enough without like just blatantly, like, where it's going if you've seen any horror movie, but they give you enough of like little hints where like the other, like a random person can watch it, like, oh, that's intriguing, what is going on? I think they like feed us a little bit until the grand reveal when he's like wheeling her down and like explaining everything. So it's kind of cool how they slowly reveal the mystery as well.
Yeah, and again, I don't mean to toot our own horns, but we've seen a lot of horror movies in particular, so we kind of knew at least I wasn't convinced that it was going to be straightforward, but I at least knew what was going on in terms of what they thought was going on. So I knew that, like, at that point, like, Isabel was in on it and wanted to become the new Mother Mary and stuff. But I just wasn't convinced that I thought it would have been interesting if, like, they were gaslit by her pregnancy because she was raped and didn't know. But no, I'm glad it didn't go that way.
And I think that, I mean, we keep saying, like, we knew where it was going, but in defense of the movie, I also think that the director probably knew that most of us knew, like, where the general story was going to go, and it was more about just the character journey of Cecilia, which is why I think she's just really, you know, it's just her. It's really about her journey through, and not really about the twists and turns. I think they obviously, like, we're not trying to do some twisty, crazy, like, mind fuck. We're just trying to tell a story about this young woman, you know, who goes through some crazy shit.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, they leave breadcrumbs, but it isn't some convoluted, twisted story. I mean, the movie's called Immaculate, so, so I think you're supposed to infer, like, you know, what's going to happen. So, yeah, I agree. I don't think they set out to really make this, like, crazy mystery that's going to, like, shock everyone at the end, for sure. No, of course not. Speaking of Isabel and, like, her almost scenes. Drowning, that I would dare call it. How do you feel about the plot hole of, all right, they find out she's pregnant, they pretty much confirm, I mean, they believe her right away that she's a virgin, and she's, you know, and they've done this before, because at the end of the movie you see all the fetuses. Why is she being treated like a regular nun after that? Like, I find it hard to believe that they wouldn't just lock her up for 9 months and keep her guarded at all times. I mean, because then in the very next
literally
scene,
locked away?
Yeah, because then in the very next scene, she's, like, being drowned. She could have died right there, and then boom, you don't have your baby. So I thought it was a little unbelievable that they were this dedicated to birthing, you know, the next coming of Christ, and they were just going to let her become, like, a regular nun. Like, they let her just wander around. She didn't have bodyguards. I feel like they would have locked her in a room, and I obviously that wouldn't make a great movie. But I thought it was kind of not explained well enough. They kind of just threw her back out there with the rest of them. I don't know how you feel about that.
How I feel about that, I understand her point, but I would say, like, everyone is supposed to look at her as, like, the new Virgin Mary, so they're supposed to show her that respect, and they don't think that there's going to be a crazy Isabel. Like, Isabel's supposed to follow the lead and be like, okay, this is her thing now. Like, you know what I mean? They're supposed to, like, bow down to Sydney Sweeney pretty much, and not really worry about anyone drowning her or killing her. But obviously when that happens, you know, the next scene, something happens, and then Isabel is no more, you know, of course, right away after that.
Well, it's more about, it's not even really the drowning. That was just a byproduct, but it's more about, like, wouldn't you want to protect your asset? Because you see that, you know, Cecilia tries to escape a couple different times, and of course, you know, she fails, so I guess credit to them, but you would think that they would just keep a closer eye on her, I guess is my point. She kind of had free reign and was kind of left to her own devices a lot of the movie. You know? I don't know if they would do that, you know? Like that creepy driver dude, like, stick him on her at all times, you know? Like, why isn't he, like, in the shadows? That would have been cool. That would have been a cool layer if he was, like, watching her from a window the whole time or something, and we saw him in the background. I don't know, something to kind of explain why she's just, you know, regular nun.
Okay. I get that point, I guess. I just think they also wanted to just have her feel like she was part of something. I don't know, like, not chained up, because, you know, they're trying to have it be a beautiful experience again when it's clearly really something devilish.
Yes. Yeah. The scene where she's all, like, dressed up in the getup on the church and stuff.
That was beautiful.
You think it was beautiful? I thought that was one of the creepier shots.
Yeah, I thought it was a gorgeous shot.
Yeah, I mean, gorgeous, yes, in a way, but I also, like, kind of sinister the way that, you know, once you find out everything, it kind of. And
I will say, her facial, like, just her acting, her physical acting in that scene. Just, you can look at her face and you can see so many things behind her. I think she does really good.
Yeah, and that's that I think, and I want to give her credit. That I think is one of her strong suits, like her intense facial acting and stuff. I just think some of the dialogue scenes where she's just, like, playing a normal person, she struggles with. I think it's a little bit forced. And that's
Okay.
just my personal opinion. Obviously,
Right,
I'm
right,
not
right.
an expert. I'm not an acting expert,
Right.
but I couldn't help but feel that. But she definitely grew into the role for sure, and some of those facial acting for sure was really well done. So moving on, let's all say goodbye to Isabel.
I
Bye,
love that
Isabel.
scene. How do you feel about that?
I loved it too, and this is another example of what you said, where they kind of show it. They flip the body over, and you get that fucking
Oh,
awesome.
I didn't expect that. I did not expect
that awesome eyeball, and I'm assuming that was practical. I don't think that was digital effects
Right.
or anything.
No, it
I
looked
thought that was
really
really
well.
cool.
Well
Yeah.
done. It's funny because every time like I tell someone to watch this movie, and like my parents watched it last week. It was on Hulu. I was like, oh, yes, watch it. It's good. Like I was like, did you like it? She's like, yeah. My mom was like, yeah. I just didn't expect it to be that gory at certain parts. I'm like, hell yeah. Like I love like people were just because these religious movies sometimes don't have that.
Yeah.
And this movie like has those little like instant like okay, there's some blood. And I love. I'm a sucker for things happening in the background, so I love when Sister Cecilia is walking, and then you just see in the background Isabel just falling. I don't know. I'm a sucker for shots like that where it's
Yeah.
not in focus, and then obviously she runs up, and I love when they flip her over, and that face. I was not expecting that. I was not expecting that. I'm like, hell yeah, show that shit.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, poor
Yeah,
Isabel.
that scene
She was
worked.
just a
Yeah,
little too
she's
jealous. Yeah,
She done.
yeah.
And then I love it's just nasty when I don't know, something with teeth when Cecilia she like throws up one of her teeth and her like health is kind of worsening. So it's kind of like things like that, like little weird things. I'm like, ugh, like the little weird like when she rips off her nail in that one scene when she's like in confession, like she's slowly ripping off her nail. I'm like, oh girl, what are you doing? What are you doing? That stuff gets me.
Yeah, and I'll give the director credit. He does little things like that throughout the movie that keeps you focused. Just when you maybe are gonna start to slip away, he'll do something like the fingernail scene. Where it could have just been a straightforward scene, but they show that in the middle of it. It keeps you perked up. So I think that was clever, the way he did those little things throughout the movie to keep you on edge a little bit. Yeah.
No, I agree. And I will say in Cecilia, as a character's defense, where she's not no dummy, she does, like, even in the first half, before we really get to the crazy, second half and third act, she does constantly, she's like, I spit up my tooth. This isn't normal. I want to go to a regular hospital, a regular doctor. So she's like, not just, like, taking it and, like, being a yes woman. She's like, I want to be taken somewhere else. And they're kind of like, I think fathered to death, whatever. They just keep denying it. But she's not just sitting there and letting them take control. She's like questioning things right away, and I think that's important with like a heroine and a final, if you want to call her a final girl in this movie. So I think that's really important. And I love that Gwen is kind of like, this is fucked up, girl. Like, what? This is not right. Like, what's going on? And she, she speaks out, and she speaks out pretty much, more aggressively than she should, because it doesn't end well for Gwen either. But she was a good friend, and she wasn't just standing by and letting it happen. But unfortunately, my poor Gwen, who I wish she stuck around to like the third act a little bit, maybe Gwen, and then she got killed in the third act. But her scene was pretty awesome. What happens to her? But I love my Gwen and Cecilia together.
Yeah, stuff like that with Gwen. And I don't think she dies necessarily. We don't see her die. We just see the tongue, right? Yeah. So
which is I love that scene.
Yeah. Examples of that. I wish they would have used more. So they pretty much just take her and she's gone. Like we don't see her until we have that nighttime scene where she's locked in the room and she's being tortured and they cut the tongue out. That stuff, that culty stuff is what I wanted a little bit more happening to Cecilia. That's, not just like little tidbits happening to side characters. Because obviously, I mean, Isabel was pushed off the ledge. I mean, that's obviously like what happened. But I guess maybe that's where I wanted it directed, maybe a little bit more towards our main character and not towards the other characters. Another example of kind of misplaced scenes. I really feel strongly about this one, and it's not a huge scene, but it's the scene of when she steals the key, or I'm sorry, she breaks into the office and she finds her file.
Okay.
That's just an example. I really think that they should have that should have happened because she sees the file right away, like very early on in the movie. She sees it, and that's where she knows where to look later on. I wish she found the file a lot sooner in the movie.
Oh, interesting.
And she could have seen the news article of her almost drowning and stuff. That would have set a creepier tone moving forward. because by the time she finds the file, shit's kind of already hitting the fan, and we're kind of already in it. And I wish they could have left that as a breadcrumb earlier in the movie, and it could have made our main character more uneasy and us more uneasy. So stuff like that, I think, was just a little misplaced.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
I do love after she found the file, and then she obviously sees what happens to Gwen getting her tongue cut out, and that crazy nun who's like saying she'll never leave. I love like the next day she like goes into like panic mode, and she like does that brilliant plan like to fake the miscarriage. I'm like she's like fucking getting to it. She's not wasting time. She's like, I'm not staying in this fucking crazy shit. So I do love that. Again, she's not just sitting there and being like a dummy. She's like proactive rather than reactive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And speaking of that scene, this was another highlight for me. I think this was probably one of, if not the most intense sequences of the movie, where I'm really rooting for her. The whole chicken scene where she fakes the miscarriage. They're in the car, and then of course the fucking old lady is like
bitch
eating the blood,
smothering herself. I'm like, what are you doing?
Like, disgusting. And the fucking feather, man. Like, oh, you couldn't pick up the feather. You had to leave.
She was in a rush. I will say, I mean, this is the thing that's, I mean, I've been slacking with going to the movies as well, but the thing about communal experiences is during this sequence, everyone was just yelling at the screen, like, girl, when they look back, they're like, fuck, get out of that car, girl. They're just screaming. They're like, run. So that was a really cool thing to be like a part of, like, you know, everyone was feeling on edge and like rooting for her to like get out and run. So I always love like other people are like in it to that extent. So it's just cool. Like, I don't know, nothing will beat that experience of going to the theater with like random strangers and they're all like having the same feeling. So that was a good sequence for that.
I felt that too in my home, and I wish I saw it in theaters because that shot of the father like on the phone and like looking at her and being like, okay. He's like, oh fuck, he knows, get out of there. Yeah, it's great. And then it cuts to her running through the field, which is a cool shot of her like sprinting, and then of course they catch up to her.
And I do love how she's in focus, and then you just pan and like, oh no, they're right there already. They already caught her. I actually really do. I didn't really look up who did the score, but I do think the score is actually really well done in the movie as well. It's subtle, but I do think it's very when the shit hits the fan, I think it crescends at the right moments. I really like the score in this movie. I don't know who did it, but I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I picked up on that on my second watch. I think it was pretty good. And I hate to, again, I hate to compare this to The First Omen, but they're so similar. The First Omen, when I watched it, like the score was one of the things. I mean, the visual cues and the sound cues just make that movie. So I watched Immaculate first, and then I saw The First Omen. So I remember seeing The First Omen and being like, oh man, I wish they had more of this in Immaculate. But, going back and seeing Immaculate the second time for this podcast episode, I do appreciate the score a little bit more. It's not as in your face as The First Omen was.
Right.
But it was effective when it needed to be. So I will give him credit there for sure.
Agreed. I think it matches the tone, like being more subtle matches the tone of this movie, being more grand with the crazy shit that's going on in the first one. I really can't wait to talk about that movie with you now because I kind of know how you.
It's gonna be fun. Yeah, we got to do that soon. Yeah.
Yeah, that movie fucking bad.
Oh, it blew me away. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that was a very well done scene when she tries to escape. Then after that, obviously, she's taken into, I don't know, we call it the dungeon or whatever you want to take, the hallway down there, and she's explained. She finally finds out what the fuck is going on. I do like that scene where it's just like one-on-one. You might not like it because you might have wanted a whole group of people as a cult there, but I do like the personal, because he was kind of there for her in the beginning, so I do like that personal revelation, and it's just like, this fucker was the one gas, like, that goddamn, whatever his, Sal, whatever the fuck his name is. God damn it.
You're kind of right. I didn't totally love it, and I don't know if it's because I didn't really love that character as the main bad guy. But the way I would have done it, and again, I'm not, a fucking film expert, and I don't make movies.
Well, just what you would prefer.
If she would have stumbled upon it herself, and it could have been this horrifying scene of all these fetuses, and then our main character finally puts the dots together herself, without having to be explained, like in a wheelchair. And then maybe like while she's in the room, like a group of people, like you said, it would have been cool. Like it's like the whole cult like surrounded her, and you're like, oh, she's fucked, and then they could have figured out a way to get her to escape. I think that would have been a little bit creepier. So like things like that, I wish like it had potential, but you know, we didn't need him explaining every little thing to her in the wheelchair. Like the audience isn't dumb, and I feel like they treated us a little bit like that in that sequence. I wish we could have seen her put the pieces together herself, and it would have been a little bit more creepy. Yeah,
I think maybe you wanted this movie to be a little bit more big, like a little bigger. Than it is.
Yeah, you know, because I didn't see it in theaters, and I heard great things about it. So maybe I had my expectations were a little too grandiose, because again, I really did enjoy this movie more the second watch, knowing, you know, keeping my expectations in check. So
we're taking it for what it is. Maybe the second, you know, like, this is what it ended up being. No, I get it. I do. I like the whole the cross branding on the foot. I thought that again when he slowly walks up to her, I thought that was really effective. Like, because you care about her so much, you're like, you can't really do anything about this. It's gonna happen to you.
So I assumed that the branding was for like the rejects and like the old ladies who rejects. So when they brand her, I was like, I guess they don't discriminate. They just brand everybody. So I thought that was, but that was
bitches act out and they get branded.
I couldn't. I had to cover my eyes.
It's so.
Give me all the gore.
The sound alone, the sound effect alone, though. I'm like, another scene. I mean, because this movie is very quick, so I do like that. Once we get to it, it's kind of just like pedal to the metal through the rest of the movie. Another scene that got a huge reaction is when she makes her final attempt to escape. When she just beats Mother Superior to death.
That was cool.
Crucifix.
That was cool.
Everyone was like fucking cheering. They were like, they were grossed out because of like, whoa, again, they're showing it. But at the same time, they're like clapping. I was like, yes, this is amazing right now. It was so good. I love that shot. And I didn't expect, like, she hit her fucking like 10 times in a row and they showed the head. And I was like, this is fucking awesome right now. Good for you. Do it. And then everyone got a little, it was great. And then I love the humor after that where her water breaks. She's like, damn it. Yeah. That was like a light moment right there where everyone could get a little laugh after that. It was great.
Yeah, that whole sequence was definitely a crowd pleaser. They definitely did that for the crowd for sure. Yeah, I could see why you had a good time seeing it in theaters. Yeah. What did you think about what did you think about the what's his name? The father
like the
being
cardinal
burned,
or whatever.
The burning scene. I thought it was a little cheesy. The way he came back and like his whole face was burned. I'm like, okay, what is this? Like a slasher movie? I don't know. I that was the one element of like not believability. You said this movie's very grounded, and maybe because the rest of the movie was so grounded, seeing that like it was a little overboard. Like the effects on his face. I'm like, really?
I was fine with it. First of all, I love how she like is just going from like person to person. Her wronged like went to the cardinal, like strangled them with the rosary.
Straight up,
she's
didn't
just
have
fucking
to do that at all. She was out. I love.
I'm like, yes, bitch, yes, bitch. You do your thing. Yeah. But I will say, I know what you're saying. It looked a little over the top, and like this is our over the top bad guy now.
Yeah.
But I kind of am happy because I'm like,
villain.
I wanted a baddie to like, I wanted a baddie chase scene, and I'm like, all right, this is. I hope he doesn't just die here, and he's gonna have to look creepy when he chases her at the end. So again. Yeah. That's just me and my like slasher like ways. I'm like, all right, cool. Like, let's chase her through the fucking tunnels like under there. And
I like that in itself. I did like that sequence, and I'm glad we got that.
Yeah,
but I just thought it was
need him to like have that. Corny. I could have had her like thrown it in, like set the fire, and then we didn't know what happened. And then he just broke out, and then we just like, oh shit, like where is he? But I get what you're saying, but it doesn't like bother me. But I know what you're getting at.
No, it's not a deal breaker. It's just like little things like this like add up, you know, for me for the movie. Right. So that's all. But yeah, that the scene with the cardinal was fuck. I was like, that was what sold me on Cecilia. I was like, she is taking no prisoners. She's just out for blood. This is fucking. Oh my god, this is crazy. They are going there for sure.
I'm like, I love this girl so much. She's just fucking taking names now.
The sound design. Of her strangling him, and then like his last little gasp of breath before he dies, you can tell he really fucking
and like it's just there. He's watching whatever them singing, like you know whatever, and then like the music just once she like wraps him, as like the music. I'm like, yes, this is so awesome. It's so good, and I love a good catacombs chase scene. So obviously, I like that's where we end. I wish it went on maybe like 2 minutes longer, like a little more suspense of her hiding, maybe in the shadows from him, and like him like stalking her. But again, that's me wanting my like slasher chase scenes, you know.
Yeah, so again, and I thought this scene was this shot was funny too, where the doctor sees her killing the cardinal, and he's like, "Oh fuck," and he just like runs
and
away.
he gets runs. I love
Yeah.
that.
So that could have been an opportunity for him to go get like the creepy henchman, and the henchman could have all
chase her. Okay.
chased her at the same time. I wish we got a little bit of that in terms of the final chase scene instead of just like a one-on-one. But I see what they were going for, that kind of like the climactic like final boss battle before she can break free, you know. She's so close to breaking free, and then he drags her back in.
I love that. Yeah, she sees poor Gwen's like mutilated corpse, and then she's like climbing out, and then she gets dragged back. I mean, again,
was that Gwen?
Yeah, that was Gwen.
Oh, okay. I thought that was
Gwen.
Mary. I thought that was Mary from the beginning.
Oh, from the opening?
Yeah,
oh no, I'm pretty
like,
sure that was
like
Gwen because you saw her. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You saw the tongue.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was Gwen.
Okay,
I would have. Yeah. Yeah, so I think that's Gwen, but I do like whenever he when he stabs her. She did die.
Okay.
She died, but it was off. I mean, we just saw the tongue. I think she died off camera. Obviously, she died off camera. Which I don't mind actually that she died. I didn't need to see. I didn't need to see that. But it got me when he pulls her back and he starts to like cut her like stomach. That freaks me out when he's like cutting her pregnant and her scream again. And I'm like, no, please. So it's like, well, then she stabs him in the throat. I'm like, hell yeah, girl. Hell yeah.
Yeah, with the fucking
and then she gets her nice fuck you in there, like the relic or whatever.
Yeah. From the
and I love a good fuck you, so she gets that in. And then this is the scene that I don't know, that has some people, because when you're dealing with birth, I know people are sensitive, but she gets out of the catacombs, wins the fight, she kills him, and she's literally like giving birth and her. This is what I'm talking about. Her scream and her like fucking noises when she's pushing that thing out is so good. And I'm someone who, again, I think less is more in some instances, so I'm happy that we just heard these like fucking weird, strange baby noises and that we didn't see it. And I do think it's pretty badass that she just like stumbles away. Like, okay, is it just gonna end with her walking away? But she does grab this fucking gigantic rock, and you just end on her crushing the baby, and it just cuts to black. I didn't need to see the baby get physically crushed. I don't know if American audience, like the MPAA, would allow that to be shown in an R-rated movie, but I didn't need to see it. But I mean, it's obviously we know what's happening, so I thought that was a pretty ballsy way to end it, for just screaming and like fucking hammering that rock down.
Oh yeah, for sure. We didn't need to see her crushing it, but I definitely needed to see it. I wish we.
You wanted to see the baby. I wasn't bothered by that.
That's
okay,
why
I get that though.
Especially the first time watch. I feel like the whole movie hinged on this reveal of what it's gonna look like. Right. Like I was hanging my hat on this. I'm like, all right, let's get through this movie so we can see it. And I was so disappointed when we didn't see it.
Yeah, it didn't bother me. I'm pretty sure that's probably a fifth. Like it's probably like split for that. Like people who like, I wish we saw. Or like, I mean, that's just personal. But I get what you're saying.
And I don't always need to see it, but in this particular instance, I really wish that we got like kind of the blurry in the background. You kind of see like the overall.
Maybe not in focus or something. Okay.
No, I mean, we got that already. We got it when she walks towards the rock. You can see it out of focus. I just wish we got more of what the actual shape of it was and what it like. Was it like a little devil baby or something? Like, what was it, So, yeah, I wish we got that. I wish we got that payoff. But, no, it was a cool ending. And her killing it was the right thing to do. I wouldn't call that. I would say that it was an opposite of a never split up moment. I think she did the right thing. That's got to be tough too. I mean, because your motherly instinct must kick in. I mean, you carried this thing to term, and it's your baby. It's your DNA. So that's got to be tough. But she's probably fucked. I would say she's dead as well because she's in the middle of nowhere. They really highlight the fact throughout the movie that they are in the middle of nowhere, and it's a long drive to get to town. So unless she could get in a car, I mean, I'm sure she bled out like in a field or something.
I don't know.
That's how I take it.
I hope she like found her way out.
Yeah, maybe we'll get a sequel. Immaculate again or something. I don't know.
That would be fucking hilarious. But no, I really enjoyed the ending, and again, I love and appreciate a good tight horror movie. And I don't think this movie needs to be this like 2.5 hour epic saga, because get to the point. Give us our girl going through some shit and just fucking get to the point and end it.
Okay, cool. That's Immaculate. And We actually didn't touch on this in the beginning of the episode, but do you want to talk about a little bit? And thanks, Sydney Sweeney. This was like a passion project for her, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So she, I believe, I don't know if she had the rights or was something about going to produce it for. She was on board for like, I think half a decade, like 5 years, like trying to get this movie off the ground.
The way I understand it is she tried out for this role like 10 years ago. There was another studio that was making the movie.
Oh yeah,
they scrapped the movie and benched it, but she fell in love with the role in the movie. So years later down the line, she bought the rights to it and brought it to Neon and actually was the one to make it happen.
Oh yeah, I think she's the one who chose the director as well because she worked with him in the whatever that movie was,
correct.
The Voyagers or Voyeurs. I forget what the title. That's a good movie too.
She's really smart, man. She's a smart chick because I remember they were asking her about Madam Web, the movie, and in one of the interviews they were kind of ragging on Madam Web, and she said, "You know what? I don't regret that movie because it gave me connections and it allowed me to make Immaculate because I wouldn't have had those connections if I didn't make Madam Web and that movie." So that was pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
She's
to see
not
that
only
she's
talented, but she's a smart businesswoman.
She's a smart businesswoman, exactly, and that she's positioning herself to do roles that she wants to do. So. Yeah, let's get more genre films out of Sydney Sweeney.
Oh yeah, please.
She's great in the rom-com. I don't know if you saw that rom-com with Glenn
I liked
Powell.
it. Actually, I think the Madame, I didn't watch Madame Web, but I think that Sony also did that rom-com. And I think that that's like one of the most successful like R-rated rom-coms like theatrically in recent years. So good for her. And I thought it was fun. It was cute.
Jackie and I recently watched it, and I thought I was gonna hate it, but it actually had some funny moments.
No, I liked it.
A lot of the side characters were funny. I liked a lot of the characters.
I'm a rom-com guy. I liked it. The fucking Australian dude cracked me up.
I'm not a Glenn Powell fan, so but
oh really? I
thought
they were really good together.
Yeah, I think he's super creepy. I think he's hiding something.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh whoa.
He gives me those weird vibes.
Oh wow. Okay.
Sorry, Glenn Powell, but
I didn't know this.
You should be a horror villain because I think you do great in the horror genre because he gives me that unsettling, creepy vibe. I don't know why.
Let's get Glenn Powell in a horror movie with Sydney Sweeney. Let's do it.
Yeah. Hey, why not? Neon, let's go. Yeah.
That's so funny.
So let's get into our never split up moments.
Okay.
I guess I'll let you decide. We don't really have a.
It doesn't matter if you want to go first. You can.
Yeah. All right, I'll go first. And I kind of touched on this a couple times throughout the episode, but I'm gonna go with kind of a moment, but right after they find out she's pregnant, I said that they kind of didn't keep a close eye on her. So I'm going to go with the cult, not like at least putting a bodyguard on her. Or I think they should have went to the extreme of keeping her in a fucking room. I mean, at this point, they don't care about her. They only care about the baby. And they kind of hinted at that too. Like, because she's like, what's going to happen to me after this? And they like didn't tell her because they're probably going to like just not dispose of her. But, once they have their fetus, they don't really.
I think
need her
maybe
anymore,
after they would have probably did what you said and probably just kept her chained up for whatever,
something like that.
Or, like,
so
locked away. Or
so
something.
The fact that they didn't lock her away, or at the very least keep people on her at all times, I think that's going to be my never split up moment.
Okay,
for sure, yeah, because she almost dies. I mean, she almost gets drowned, and boom, that's the end of the movie. You don't have a movie,
Teach you to never split up for the baddies. Okay, all right.
Yeah,
I like that. That's different.
She was a pretty smart protagonist. So
she really was. I don't really have for her, but I'm gonna go with I like that you did one for the baddies. That might be one of the first for that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go with because I kind of hinted at it earlier when Gwen's trying to like stick up for Cecilia. I think that instead of lashing out, because once she's screamed, obviously she's gonna be taken away because she's not cooperating. I think that maybe she should have been like, because they're roommates, like at night, like, let's like figure this out together and how to get you out. Like, let's just find a solution together rather than her lashing out and then being taken away to get her tongue cut off. I think that she kind of lashed out when she should have just taken a breath and, sit back and then go with Cecilia, and they could have like probably solved this together and try to get out together. So she kind of like also like screwed over Cecilia by kind of lashing out because she left her alone after that. So yeah. I'm gonna see Gwen like pretty much lashing out when she should have just taken a breather and figured shit out with Cecilia.
Yeah, that's definitely a good moment for sure. That's a really good moment. Awesome. Okay, cool. So let's get into our scores. I'm gonna let you go first for your score.
All right. Like I said, I think this is a very, very good movie. It's not like, amazing, but I think it sets out to be an effective religious horror movie with a great lead performance and get to the point and get in and get out. And I appreciate a movie like that. That's not trying to be the best thing ever, but just trying to do exactly what the script sets out to do. And I think this movie succeeds, you know, very, very well at doing that. And I think that this is gonna put Sydney Sweeney on the map by just not being the hot girl. Like I think if someone just takes the time and watches, it's like she's really got the chops. Not that she hasn't proven herself in the past, but if you ever have any doubt, do this. And I think she has the potential to be a good future, Gen Z scream queen or whatever. Like she really has what it takes. So I love it. I think that it's just bloody enough without going overboard for this type of movie. I do wish that maybe in the end we could have got a little more of a chase here and there, or a little bit, some scenes be a little more extended with the suspense. But overall, I think it's very good. So I'm gonna give it a 7.6. Very good movie.
Okay, cool. You were throwing out the word love a couple times, so I wasn't sure quite how high you were going to go with, but you love it for what it is.
Yes, I don't love it like it's like my...
Yeah. Okay. I was thinking like,
very
are we going
rewatchable
to get in the high
for you,
eights with you?
No,
Okay.
no,
Yeah,
but I think it's a very
7.6.
good
Okay.
movie that's, I think it's harmless, and I think it's a very good watch.
I enjoyed this movie the second time around. Like I said, that my score definitely got bumped up after watching it the second time around. For sure, it was going to be a lower score because I just watched this earlier today. So going into today, I was thinking about my score because I always panic when we do these scores.
I know.
So I was thinking ahead of time, and I'm like, yeah, this is going to be kind of low. I think Anthony's going to be surprised, but watching it a second time definitely bumped the score up a bit for me. I enjoy this movie, and I didn't think it was going to be as rewatchable. Seeing it the first time, I kind of had that thought, and I might have said it to Jackie, my wife, like, I don't need to see this movie again. It doesn't really do anything for me, but I'm really glad that we did this episode, and then I watched it again, because it is, I think, more rewatchable than I thought, so that's kudos to that. Like you said, Sydney Sweeney delivers in those intense moments for sure. Thank you for making this film and being in the horror genre. I love it when A-list actors do horror. We need more of it. Horror's thriving right now, but we can never get enough. So keep it going. I thought this was a cool movie. I'm gonna give it because it's a religious horror. I'm gonna give it a 6.66.
Oh, all right, I like that.
Yes.
Okay, all right, get into the theme of the movie. All right.
6.66, and you were a 7.6, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Cool. Awesome. All right, so that's it, guys. Thank you so much for welcoming us back. We're glad to be back. Hopefully, I'll get this wall decorated behind me in due time as we continue to move into my new house, and you'll see, hopefully, all my masks again. But until next time, I'm Nolan. That's Anthony. This was Immaculate, episode 54. Keep an eye out on our social media for our polls, our Never Split Up poll. You can vote. We're also probably going to be running some polls for the Halloween season on what you guys want to listen to for our upcoming episodes. So keep a lookout for that. We got to get back into some of our franchise rankings. We love doing those rankings. So, I'm really excited for the next couple months to come. Anything else, Ant, before we wrap it up here?
No, just again, we're going to post some polls, but if you guys want to let us know any suggestions, what movies you want us to cover, or what kind of, special episodes, whether it be rankings or something else crazy and wacky you want us to do, we're always open to any suggestions. So we're excited for the future.
Yes, for sure. And hit us up at neversplituppod on our socials. Until next time, we'll see you guys later. Thanks so much. Bye.